It's an eerie portal to the past, filled with graceful receding arches and hidden passageways. Armored with brawny stonework, embedded deep in the mud at Soller's Point. You may have seen it driving over the Francis Scott Key Bridge, a curious island of stone in Baltimore's outer harbor, hiding long-forgotten history and mystery. The bombardment of Fort McHenry in the War of 1812 demonstrated a real and looming danger. Invading navies could sail up the Chesapeake Bay and attack Baltimore. In 1848, America's military minds set out to prevent such a threat and ordered the construction of Fort Carroll to replace Fort McHenry. But the fort became obsolete and was abandoned years ago, and now lies empty. For 60 years, Fort Carroll has waited to be rescued. Baltimore developer Bill Strever's imagination is fired by the architecture and history of this place. As Strever explores this granite and brick time capsule circa 1847, he soaks in the mystery of its twisting, turning hallways.
This is a soulful place, and it touches you. I feel an incredible spirit about it because it is such a little hidden sanctuary, and then you hear the little echo from the arches, and it's the shimmering of the light from the sun reflecting off the water outside coming in, and the wonderful symmetry of it, of the succession of archways, one after another, just beautifully crafted and together. The amazing thing about the brickwork is how all these different archways and angles came together. The craftsmanship is truly special.
The fort's breathtaking workmanship can be attributed to none other than its chief engineer, Robert E. Lee, who as a young Army colonel was brought to Baltimore to build Fort Carroll. Coastal fort historian Elliot Deutsch.
When the guns of enemy ships could outrange the guns of Fort McHenry close to Baltimore, and therefore safely bombard downtown Baltimore, it was decided about 1820 to build a fort further out from the city that could hold the ships off.
Work began in 1848, but after 3 years of construction and a host of problems, the project ground to a halt, and the six-sided fort with walls 10 feet thick and 40 feet high remained unfinished. It never faced battle or even fired a shot.
Unfortunately, Fort Carroll was obsolete before it was ever finished because the range of naval guns soon exceeded the range of the muzzle-loading guns with which Fort Carroll was armed.
Each one of these little arched rooms was to be a cannon, and originally it was going to be 5 levels of cannon. They ran out of money, or they got distracted by the Civil War or whatever, and never finished it.
Up until World War II, Fort Carroll served as a training base, a Coast Guard station, a lighthouse station, a firing range. And after World War II, it was sold to a Baltimore family, the Eisenberg family, for about $10,000 in the 1950s.
The Eisenbergs' grand plans to turn Fort Carroll into a recreation spot never materialized. Bill Strever hopes that one day, Fort Carroll can be restored into a place that celebrates an amazing piece of history and offers Baltimore a one-of-a-kind getaway.
We shouldn't let this just fall back into the harbor. We got to make this a place where people can think about life and share ideas and connect with the past, and maybe a little enjoy the spooky mystery of what it is.
But there is a strange twist. The fort has been taken over by colonial waterbirds, an extraordinary gathering of species that have claimed the island for their own and nest here 3 months of the year, from late spring into summer. There isn't another colony like it for 100 miles, which presents a quandary. Should Fort Carroll be left to the birds?
I worry about the roof because with all the trees growing up there, at some point the roots are going to come through and break through these arches, and once the arches start to collapse, then it will be all over. So this would be a tragedy to lose this unbelievable spot.
As the trees grow through the mortar, the dreams of those like Streever who want to reclaim the rich history and rare architecture of Fort Carroll will slowly dim. Fort Carroll's future, like much of its past, is filled with uncertainty.
This was just supposed to be a fort, and it's a work of art. So I hope someday somebody's able to figure out how to make peace with the birds so they can keep their rookery. This should be celebrated and preserved before this unbelievably beautiful piece of Robert E. Lee engineering and brickwork falls down into rack and ruin.
Stream anytime, anywhere with the free PBS app.